Hello, welcome to Word Problems with Mrs. Tan. Today I'm going to share with you how to solve a word problem involving ratio, which is a primary 5 topic. Let's start. Now there are 4 boys in this question named Alan, Brian, Carl and Dan. Let me name them A, B, C, D for ease of annotation. Now A, B, C, D, for the start, the ratio of the number of cards that Alan has to the total number of cards Brian, Carl and Dan have is 1:5. Start off by annotating the cards for Alan versus that for the rest of the boys. Alan has 1 unit, the rest of the boys have 5 units, which is given in the question 1:5, and we will know that the total number of units of cards that all the boys have make up 6 units. Now, furthermore, we know that the ratio of the number of cards that Brian has to the total number of game cards Alan, Carl and Dan have is 5:7. The next scenario, let's look at Brian. He has 5 units. And now for the rest of the boys, A plus C plus D, 7 units as given in the question, which will bring us to a total of 12 units. Now, since we are looking at the same pack of cards, therefore rightfully, their total has to be the same. But in this case, they are different. So the technique here is to make the total the same. So how do we do that? Now, for the first row, we can multiply each of the units by 2. Okay. Why do I multiply each of the units by 2 here is because I want to make the total the same. The total for the second row is 12 units, and in order to make it the same, I will have to multiply 6 units by 2 to give me 12. And in order to maintain the ratio, which is equivalent ratio in this case, we have to multiply by 2 for each of the column above to maintain the ratio. And having done this, my new equivalent ratio now would be Alan 2 units, B plus C plus D give me 10 units, which will bring me to a total of 12 units. Now, if you see what I have done over here, I have already made the total the same. And for part A, we have to find the ratio of the number of game cards Alan has to the number of game cards Brian has. Now, in this case, where do we then make the comparison? Now, looking at the new ratio, okay, for Alan versus the rest of the boys, Alan, we have 2 units, and whereas for Brian, in the second row, 5 units. So, the answer for this will therefore be 2:5, because 2 units goes to Alan, 5 units goes to Brian. Therefore, this will secure our 1 mark for part A. Now let's move on to part B. Alan has 30 game cards. So how many more cards must Alan buy so that he has twice as many game cards as Brian? So in this case, we know Alan has 30 game cards. Now looking at our answer from part A, we know that Alan has 2 units. And in part B, we were told that Alan has 30 game cards. Therefore, 2 units equals 30 game cards. We solve for 1 unit first, which will bring us to 15 game cards. So now, I will restate the number of cards in terms of units that Alan has versus Brian. Okay, 2:5, which is our answer in part A. Now, in this case, how many more cards does Alan has to purchase so that he will end up have twice as many cards as Brian? So if we look closely at the ratio again, Brian has 5 units. Now, in order for Alan to have twice the number of game cards that Brian has, Alan has to purchase more cards, and he has to bring his total number of units of cards to 10 units. Why 10? Because end up he has to have double that of what Brian has. So Alan, at the end of the day, he needs to have 10 units of his cards. However, at the moment, Alan only has 2 units. So what is the additional number of units that he has to buy in order to bring his total number of cards to 10 units? So the total number of cards that he has to add on to his collection, take the difference between 10U and 2U, that will bring us to 8U. So Alan has to buy another 8 more units of the game cards. And how many cards is this 8 units? Since we already know from our working that 1 unit is 15 cards, therefore solve for 8 units. 15 multiplied by 8, which will bring me to 120 cards. And this will be the answer for part B, which is 120 cards that Alan has to buy in order to have his collection of cards to be twice that of Brian in the end. Okay, that's all for today. Hope you enjoy this problem sum with me. See you next time.